Today we will be reviewing the leg muscles below the knee
and the arm muscles above the elbow. Alright, so we're going to be starting off by discussing the upper portion of the upper extremities. So I have the arm here in anatomical position. We're going to start off by talking about the anterior side first. So the anterior side is going to consist mainly of the flexors. So this is going to really get down and be really important closer to the hand. So we actually separate the posterior and anterior by the humerus. So if we flip this over, this is going to be our posterior side. These are going to be mainly our extensors, which, like I said, is going to be a little bit more important once you get back down the carpals. So flipping back over to the anterior side, we're going to go through and talk about some muscles. So we're going to start up top. Up top first, we have our deltoid muscle. So once we take off our deltoid muscle, we're going to expose our bicep brachii. So the biceps head have actually two heads. So it's going to have a lateral head and a medial head. The lateral head is going to be the long head. The medial head is going to be the short head. So if we dismantle that one, we're going to expose our brachialis. So this is the muscle you can actually feel right here. You're going to have your bicep right here, and you're going to have your brachialis right here. So if you take off that brachialis with both heads, you'll expose that brachialis right here. And then right here we have the coraca brachialis, and then we're going to flip over to our posterior side, where we are going to have our spine of the scapula. Then we're going to have our supraspinatus muscle, and then we're going to have our infraspinatus muscle, and then we're going to get down into our teres minor and teres major. And then now we're going to get down to our tricep muscle. So our tricep muscle is actually going to have three heads. So it's going to have a long head, it's going to have a lateral head and a medial head. So the tricep is actually the most medial when it's in anatomical position. So this is what butts up against your latissimus muscles right here. And all of these are going to connect to your elbow.
Alright, so now that we've seen the full arm, we're just going to go through a quick review here. So as you can see from the picture to the right, you have your deltoid muscle on top. So this is going to be the posterior view. So what you will actually find below this, you're actually going to see the spine of the scapula, and above that spine you are going to see the supraspinatus muscle. Then below that you're going to be seeing the infraspinatus muscle, and then below that you're going to have the teres minor and the teres major. So then as we move back, we see the deltoid again. And then remember, we're still on the posterior side, so we're going to see our triceps. So those triceps are going to have those three heads. And then you're going to see your biceps brachii. That's going to be able to be seen on the posterior and anterior views. And then, although we didn't cover this earlier, the brachioradialis is going to be below the elbow usually. And that's going to connect down to your carpals. So on the anterior view, you're still going to be able to see that part of the deltoid there, and then it's going to continue on down, and you're going to see the biceps brachii, And those are going to have the two heads. Remember, that's going to be the lateral and the medial head. The medial head is going to be the small head, and then the lateral head is going to be the larger head. And then again, you're going to see your triceps brachii. You're just seeing the side view there. And that is our review for our shoulder muscles and arm muscles above the elbow.
Okay, and for the posterior side, the tibialis posterior muscle, it starts right here and goes down into the medial view right here. And then we've got the popliteal muscle, which is right here, superior to the tibialis anterior. And below that muscle, we have got the flexor digitorum muscle. And then we have back to the posterior side. We have the flexor hallucis longus muscle, which is beneath the gastrocnemius muscle, which attaches right back onto here. And there we have it, folks.
Alright, so now we are going to begin our review for our lower extremities. So we only did the lower extremities below the knee. So this first involves with the tibius anterior. So the best way for this one is, so you have the tibia bone, and it's going to be on the anterior side, so it's going to be on the front side, and that's going to connect right to it. There's not going to be any muscle covering the front of that tibia bone, but you're going to have that anterior side tibius anterior muscle. So next you're going to have the fibularis longus muscle. So that's going to kind of wrap up below there and then end up actually connecting below the heel there. So then you have the fibularis brevis, the extensor hallucis. Then you have the fibularis teretis, superior extensor retiniculum, inferior extensor retiniculum, and these are all going to be the superficial muscles. So that being said, that's going to mean they're going to be closer to the skin as opposed to the ones on the right model here are my deep muscles. So continuing on with the superficial muscles, we're going to look at the posterior side. So this is going to be, we're looking at our calves. So the large muscle that you're going to really relate to a calf muscle is going to be your gastrocnemius. So that's going to have a lateral head and a medial head. So again, the lateral is always going to be on the outside, so that's going to be the lateral head. Then the medial head will always be more towards the inside. It's going to be the medial side, so medial head. Then you have that thin muscle running behind your kneecap there. That's going to be the plantaris. And then, so deep to the gastrocnemius, you're going to have the soleus muscle. It's going to be right below that calf muscle. So that right below that gastrocnemius muscle. And then, of course, you have your calcaneal tendon. So that's going to be your Achilles tendon. It's got its name because the heel is called the calcaneus. So therefore you have that calcaneal tendon. So going back to that deep muscle we talked about earlier, so that deep muscle is going to be deeper than the superficial muscle. And the first muscle we've got here is the popliteus. So that's going to be behind that gastrocnemius, because we're still looking at the posterior view. And then you have your soleus is cut. So if you look at your large soleus muscle, they've cut so you can see below that. And we're going to see our tibius posterior, because we're looking at our posterior. And then our flexor digitorum. And then our flexor hallucis longus. And then our fibularis brevis. So that was just a run through of all the muscles that we covered.
So Megan, what's a way that you like to memorize all these muscles for the arms and legs?
Okay, so to start off as a quick little study tip, I always like to remember because I get a little bit confused between the anterior side and the posterior side, and which one's going to be flexor and which one's going to be extensor. So for the anterior side, that's always going to be the front, and those are going to be the flexor muscles. So I always think of that, so front flexor. That usually helps me a lot, and then I can kind of eliminate, and that leaves my extensors for my posterior side. And then I do get a little bit confused as well, telling these muscles between one another. So the best way is superior. This is the supraspinatus. So that's going to be superior on top of the spine here. And then below that, so inferior is going to be the infraspinatus. So those are the two best ways I can think of that one. And then another confusing one, you get the teres minor and the teres major. Minor is going to be on the top and major is going to be on the bottom. So the small one and then the big one. So you've got the big tier on the bottom and then the small tier on top. So that helps me a little bit. What about
Awesome.
you?
I never thought of it that way, honestly, because I usually get pretty mixed up with generally the same things, anterior, posterior, which should be easy, you know, but as for the tibialis, you know, tibialis anterior would be anatomical position in the front, and the tibialis posterior is obviously posterior in the back. Another thing that I struggled with was figuring out which muscles, you know, connected to what tendon or where they started and everything. So what helped me was cutting it in half, kind of, you know, doing above the knee terms and then breaking down below the knee terms.
Okay.
So yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much for watching.
And remember that your lab partners will always have your back.